everyone. Welcome to Yogaberry, your yoga for scoliosis community. I'm Christine Yogaberry and I am with Bel De Wilde today. And Bel is a yoga teacher who has Spinal Fusion. And I met her at a training course with Elise Browning-Miller, a yoga for scoliosis course. And I was really keen to chat with her today about her yoga journey, about recovery from fusion. So welcome, Bel.
Hi.
Hi. So maybe we just start with the fusion, your scoliosis story. So maybe take us back to when you first found out about your scoliosis. And I think from what I read on your website, you were quite young, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was about 11 years old, and I was coming home from school, lifting heavy bags filled with books as kids do. And I bent forwards one day and my mum just said, "Whoa, stop, what's that?" And she'd noticed that my rib cage had started to come up on my right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we went to see a surgeon, and I got the diagnosis that I had scoliosis. So that's where it all started. I also have a kyphosis as well, so I have a tendency to fold forwards,
Mm-hmm.
and my shoulders slightly round. So they, at the time, wouldn't operate until I was at 45 degrees.
Okay. And you were at how many degrees when?
I think by the time I had surgery at 15, I was about 55 degrees.
Okay. And when they found out first?
When they found out first, I think it was already at about 40.
Oh, right. So, okay. So you were already.
Yeah. And my scoliosis is idiopathic, so no common cause.
Right.
Nobody in my family has it.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no history. So it came out blue. Off I went to Southampton General because that's my local centre of expertise. But I believe now that I think Stanmore Royal Orthopaedic, they've got some amazing surgeons up there, a really good team of physios, and they seem to be leading within the South there. So that's something that I've discovered later on my path. Yeah, so if I went 15, apprehensive, not really knowing what was going to happen. My parents were obviously very much in control of what was going to happen, and consent for me to go through the operation. The operation itself was a whole day. So the first one was between 12 and 15 hours. It was big stuff. And I don't know if you know about the operation in detail, but it's heavy duty, and there's a big team involved in the actual operation as well. So it's major and it's big trauma. And I mean, I was 15 and I'm now about to turn 30, and there was no build up. I didn't have any counselling before, just to let me know what I'd be going in for, or pre-physio, and the aftercare was very minimal. So my mum and I together have had to do a lot of rebuilding, and I would say it's, for me personally, it's and I know situations are always changing. It was a blessing to have such a strong, close-knit family, because they really did all the hands-on care at the time. So it took me probably about a year to get my energy levels back up. And
you were still in school, obviously, then?
I was still in school, and it was GCSEs, you know, so
you had to take time off.
Well, I had to take time off, but I was studying whilst I was in my bed. And I was, at the time, I was in grammar school, so, you know, everybody it's quite a competitive environment. And I was really determined not to let my grades slipped. So I had all of these other pressures going on, you know, in the background. And I did finally get back to school about a month before results. But I think it's really important not to dumb down the mental side of scoliosis. As much as I am pro movement and yoga and ease in my body, the mind plays a huge part of it too. You know, at school, I then began to become fearful of walking across the quad, of somebody bumping into me. And it's a huge thing to go through that not many other kids go through. You're obviously dealing with a changed body. I mean, I was 2-3 inches taller suddenly. My shape totally changed.
Wow.
My ribs were sat in a completely different position. And of course, then I had to deal with, you know, you're not only dealing with hormones and periods and working yourself out in your body, but, you know, I had these great big scars. And ever since now, they're very beautiful for me. I love them, and they're my story, and it's part of what I do and who I am. But at the time, you know, I remember my mum handing me the mirror and seeing my scars for the first time, because as you know, you've seen mine. I have a scar that runs all the way down the length of my spine, but also across my right rib cage at the back, because I have a right thoracic curve. So that was where most of the work was done. So there are lots of different aspects to it, and with Back to Back, my awareness page, it's more than the yoga. It's you know, for people who want to know about what you do with your scars and ointments and silicone strips and steroid injections, all the different things I've trialed and tested. It's support, it's mind, body, soul support. So yeah, it took me about a year to recover. I moved on, went to college. I've had a lot of lessons, a lot of struggles, things to work out and manage. Migraines, that's been a big one for me.
Right.
Something that I have suffered quite severely with.
And you think it's related to the surgery?
I think possibly. I had my very first one in recovery, and they've been very crippling and debilitating, and it's impacted my life a lot. And at university, I remember that was when I started thinking, right, I have to start moving. I have to break the cycle and find some ease. So I did everything. I tried Pilates, Tai Chi. I tried all sorts of different forms of movement. And it was probably 2015. I'd been really unwell. And at that time, I was in the middle of doing my commercial real estate masters. I had a goal in sight. I was going to become a chartered surveyor, and that was it. That was me set. I was dedicated. I had my place at Reading Uni, and I was on a mission. And I had to stop because I was so unwell. So it was at that point when I had to cut down 2 days a week. So I was on 3 days of work. And it had totally interrupted my plan again. And, you know, I was, at the time, I felt like, oh, I'm being thrown off the career ladder. What can I do? So I just dedicated at that point 2 days a week to my body. And it's something I'd never really done. You know, straight out of hospital, straight home, limited physio. So I never really actually spent time rebuilding all the muscles surrounding my spine that had been damaged during surgery. So, you know, nothing to do with my mind either. So actually what was happening was, the positive was that it was giving me the time now to dedicate to my body and to really sort out aches and pains, because for me it was very much lower back pain as well. My glutes were weak, my quads were weak, everything was so weak, my structure was just crumbling, and I remember feeling very folded forward. So it's slowly, I started with Pilates actually, to start on my core, and then I released my awareness site, and people were asking me for videos or tips or things to help with headaches or stretch out neck pains or lower back pain. And I then decided in 2017, well, I'd got my energy up enough that I was able to take on another day of work, which was really empowering. I think it's that taking control of your body and taking control of your life and feeling well, because I've had years, half my lifetime, of not feeling well, not being able to do, and having to go the hard way around. So I took on another day of work, and then in 2017, I decided, okay, well, actually, yoga brings me so much joy, so much ease, so much relief. And every day is a different exploration of my body and where I need to work or where I need to let go. And I went to India. I went out to Goa. I spent a month doing my yoga teacher training, which was incredible. And I came back a completely different shape, stronger, straighter, and it spiraled from there really. I try and do gentle stretching every day. Hatha, I would say, is a really good place to start for anyone that's been signed off. That's really important that you seek medical advice, because we're not doctors. And you're signed off, and it's okay to start moving. So Hatha was where I started, just gentle, and I do a bit of flow now.
Okay.
But for me, because I have hooks and a fusion, I had all my metalwork taken out, by the way. Forgot to mention.
Yes, I wanted to go back to that, to the operation as well. So you had a thoracic scoliosis, about 55 degrees. You said when you had the operation.
Yeah.
How much did they originally reduce it? Like what?
So I think I was reduced down to 25 degrees.
Right, and the kyphosis, the hyperkyphosis as well.
Yeah, and that was more of a challenge for them. That's why I had hooks in between my shoulder blades, because I was folding forwards. It just lifted me back up.
Okay.
So, I mean, that for me is my difficult patch with yoga, because when I'm snaking through into a cobra, that bit of my back doesn't bend. So I have to find alternative ways to bring myself down and snake up through into a cobra. And my neck is slightly forwards. So that for me is my main area of
challenge.
Yeah, challenge.
And then why did they take it out?
So about a year on, I was in terrible pain still. And my dad was driving me to school, and he just looked at me and said, "You're so tired. Why are you so tired still?" And I'm in so much pain. I said, "It's so painful. It's sharp." And I was particularly around my lower back at night. It was like I had scissors prodding into me. So he just said straight away, right. And I was always the child that I would just get up, get on, and I'd never moan. And I hated people making a fuss. And the environment I was surrounded in was, I guess I was fearful of coming across as weak. So I'd always find my own way to get around things. And I wouldn't necessarily share. I hated to see anyone in my family make a fuss or watch me in pain, because as you know, with kids, you want to do everything for them to make it better. And ultimately it has to come from you. So I'd kept a lot to myself, and he just said straight away, right, you're going to get an x-ray. We need to make sure everything's okay. And lo and behold, when I had that x-ray, several of the screws in my lower back had come undone, and we made the decision to take as much of the metalwork out as possible, because in theory, after I think it's a year and a half, technically you're fused. Yeah, but I would say I have moved since. I'm glad. We don't know, if I hadn't had surgery, where I'd be now. And it was what we could do to make the situation better at the time. I am glad that I don't have huge amounts of metalwork still there, because I do have a lot of mobility in my lower back. But I have to do the work to keep it straight and strong. And taking it further back, I had a straight spine and it started to curve. And for me, when something impacts me emotionally, you know, something hits my heart space, I do round forwards. I do, yeah, it's protection, it's my guard. And I was straight, and I think I went through a rough patch at school, as you do, bitchy playground situations, and not fitting in, or whatever it was that was going on at the playground in the time. And I think it was that emotional struggle that then started to impact on my frame. And my area, of course, is here, thoracic, so that's my heart space in the yoga world. So a lot of what I do now in yoga is heart expansions. That really helps me, but also it lifts you to bring fresh air and oxygen to that space. So yeah, I had all the metalwork taken out, and that was it really. That was as far as it went, and then I went off on my own journey rebuilding.
Did they give you any advice or guidance for recovery after the it would have been 2 surgeries then, I guess, or like how long did they say, you know, to move, or were they just like not bothered, basically this is done and then you're off on your own, do whatever feels good for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think with anything medical, they're good at doing the job they've got to do, but then there isn't much crossover between departments. So I had a little bit of physio, because they have to get you up and moving, sat up in the bed, and slowly drains and things get taken out and removed. And then before you leave, at the time, I had to walk down the corridor and I think up a couple of steps. And then there was a bit of gentle movement, but that was it. That was really it. And as soon as I was home, it was thank God for my mum, because I couldn't move very much. And she was holding me up in the shower, holding me up when I went to the loo, you know, because you can't bend. And in the shower, even, you know, raising my arms to here to wash my hair, I couldn't do. So for me, looking back, that was my biggest godsend, having that support network. But since having explored other techniques, other surgical methods, because it was a consideration, you know, is this something I should do to help me further? And I went up to Stanmore Royal Orthopaedic Hospital, which is near Watford, and they have a really amazing team, some very forward-thinking surgeons with different techniques. And also they have a physio team up there who are now, I believe, shadowing surgeons and patients right from the start. So they're involved in every aspect of it, right through to the surgery and then aftercare. So they know how to handle their patients and build them back up. And there's a ward specifically for scoliosis patients. So it's an area of expertise which is useful to know.
Yes, absolutely.
While considering it, but there's positives and negatives with everything. And I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have found the yoga and I wouldn't have done all the other things I've done and learned the lessons if I hadn't. So it's worth weighing up. And one of the questions I get asked so often by young women, but also parents of, is and quite often it's, I'm a month away from surgery or I'm 2 months away from surgery. Does yoga help you? And it's such a huge question. And I guess my answer is always, when you're about to go into something so huge, it's something I didn't do enough of either, because there was, I think the Alexandra technique classes in London, which for me was a 2-hour drive. There weren't yoga teachers for scoliosis. There weren't groups. There was nothing specialized, because we did try to find something. But that would be what I would always say: try it first. Try the physio. Try the Pilates. Try the yoga. Try the movement first. With everything in life, the hard work has to come from you.
Yes.
Of course.
There's no point. I work with a lot of teenagers, and I always say to them, as a parent, and I am a parent, so I completely understand. You'll be nagging your children, you want the best for them, and you want them to do everything possible, but at the end of the day, it's your body.
It's your body, it's your life, and without it, we can't get from A to B. Freedom is precious, and you've got to look after it. Whether you have scoliosis or not, you've got to look after your body and maintain it, and have daily rituals to clear and align. So yeah, always encourage, try these things first. Surgery, very last resort. And
did you have a choice? Was there ever a discussion for you? Because you were saying, they pretty much had this number in mind. I guess once you reach that number, they would operate. But would there have been the opportunity to say no, or was it impacting organs, or that it would have?
Yeah, because I'm a right thoracic, and even now when I'm tired and I can't hold my body and I'm relaxed, it really impacts my breathing, where my rib cage is twisted round out to the back. I get breathless. So that was what was impacting me as well. There were so many different elements to it. It was painful. It was getting worse, and my breathing was being impacted. But also, at 11, 12, it didn't look very nice. I know it's really important to find inner beauty, and that's something I've really had to learn. But it didn't look nice, and it didn't look nice in my clothes. And so that's why I talk about the mental side of it as well. That's a huge aspect for young women. And actually, it's often it's often most of the questions, before the actual structural side of just feeling well. There's a huge aesthetic side to it too. So yeah, of course I had a choice, but at that time parents signed consent, because I was under 16, and I'm lucky I have two very loving, kind, supportive parents who did do a lot of research, um, because that's a big part of it too, knowing what it is, why it happens, and unpicking that too, and working out who to go to and where. And for us, I'm down on the south coast. Southampton General is the centre of excellence, and that was a recommendation. I'm not sure if it was Scoliosis UK, but I remember my dad had approached someone within the field, and that's where we were pointed to. And it went from there, really. And it was the best thing to do at the time. But I'm only coming up 30, and this was between 11 and 15. There was nothing out there. And I longed to have someone, late 20s, somebody I could look up to, no role model, to ask questions to, because took me so long to work things out. And coming out of surgery, I suffer with keloid scars. And I don't know if you've ever worked with anyone with keloids, but
No.
the body overproduces tissue, so they become very thick and very red, and that at the time, now having seen dermatologists, I realised that there are various things surgeons can do to limit that whilst they're actually about to sew the wound up. But at the time we didn't know that, so I've had years of silicone strips, scar treatments, oils, creams, injections, and all sorts of different things. And I think you get to a stage with it all as well, where you actually just don't want anybody else touching your body. So it was when I started the yoga, and I became a teacher in 2017. It was just so such a relief, but also an exhilarating feeling to start moving my body in ways that I hadn't moved in years, because after the operation I became fearful of moving, fearful of knocking something out. And then of course when I had my the metalwork had come loose, it's like, okay, well, what happens next, and so I was so overly cautious and careful, and I limited my movement actually, because I was fearful of moving or knocking something.
You think that is a real, could you actually, move something? I mean, these are metal rods, obviously, or there's metal in there. Is it possible to hurt yourself with movement?
I couldn't say yes or no. I mean, in theory, I'm not a medical expert, but in theory, if it's all placed in and tightened up, bolted, screwed, no, you're not moving anywhere. But I know that I think it's the first year you have to be a bit careful. But techniques have moved on so much, and there's less invasive surgeries going on, and
Yes.
in the States I think they've got some amazing surgeons and research around it taking place. So that would be top tip prior to surgery: research, educate, because knowledge is power, and then you have more choices and you can make a better choice.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I always say. Get as much information as possible.
Yeah, and I'm just one example. There are thousands of us in different countries who've had different surgeons and different methods. So speak to people, and that's what's really empowering about social media, is that we are able to now network, connect up, and give each other advice, which is just incredible. I didn't have that, you know. There was no Facebook, there was nothing, and it would have saved so much of my time and struggle, because it's very lonely. It's very lonely, you know, when everyone's talking about periods and boys, and I'm worrying about just how my body looks and my spine and all these totally different issues. I didn't have anyone to relate to, so that's, I think, the sheer networking side of it's really important, not to sit alone with it. Yeah,
that's why I think it's great to have someone like you to talk about it, because it will help a lot of young people who are going through it at the moment, and parents who are just maybe looking for different different solutions, and what would life look like after surgery if your child has surgery, because obviously sometimes people think that it's then done. You have scoliosis and then they do the surgery and then your spine is straight and then you go off, and as if nothing happens, but that is obviously not the case.
No, it's a lifestyle, and it's how you turn it into a positive. And my pain has become my power and my greatest strength, and all the things that I do and share, and journeys and rituals and things that I discover and share on my social media, it's all the things that I wanted. And that's what I said to myself, well, what would I want? You know, and the beauty aesthetic side of it, that is important too, because we are women and we do want to feel beautiful. And I remember at university when we were all around somebody's house, as you do, piling up before a night out, everyone's putting their, you know, new top on. At the time we all went to Topshop or somewhere like that to buy an outfit for the night out. And I remember thinking, well, what can I wear to hide? What can I wear to cover up? I lived in a cardigan for years as a way to disguise, because I didn't like the way my back jutted out on one side. You know, and now I would always go for the dress that's backless, for the top that's backless, because I love my scars, I love my back, and it's become a part of what I do, and something that can really help people, which is so empowering. And you know, social media, again, as we all know, it has its good and its bad sides. The bad is that I think it's not great sometimes when we see such perfect portrayals of people's life and beauty, and that's not helpful. But you know, for you and I, sharing on these platforms ways to help people is so empowering, and the connecting and networking that comes through it also is incredible. And it's fast, and there are all sorts of different things that you can do. So it's very much about what you can do. What can you do? How can you make this a positive? And there are now other options, which is fantastic.
Do you have any tips for us for practicing yoga with spinal fusion? I mean, obviously you said there are certain movements maybe that you find difficult, or that feel maybe a little bit more restricted. Do you have any tips kind of for us how to deal with that?
The first thing I would say is, when I did my very first yoga class, it was quite painful, and I found it quite frustrating. And what it was doing was highlighting all the areas where I was so stiff and stuck. So it's been a slow process, and you have to be disciplined with it, with everything. And there's an element of dedication. And I started with one class, and I tell you now, I got home and I was exhausted. That was me done for the day. And I remember thinking, oh, how am I ever going to do this? How am I ever going to find ease? And it built to 2 classes, to 3 classes, to every day, before I then had enough strength to get on a flight, even to get myself out to India. And you know, because there's all the issues of, well, what bed am I going to be in? Is it going to be a comfy supportive bed? And all the different things that you have to think around when you have a painful spine. So it was a slow process, and that's why I think it's such a powerful journey. They always say it's the journey of going inwards, and everything is always changing. So you might not always feel the same from day to day, and it's really important to balance, taking everything on the mat, off the mat. So balance, which is obviously key for us. Because we're always trying to find our center, because we are slightly off center, and balancing up, and proprioception, tuning into your own body, your compass, and learning to adjust for yourself. The breath is incredibly powerful. That for me is my marker of how I'm feeling. Is the breath up? Is it slow? Am I calm? Am I anxious? And if my breath is not calm, I try and focus more on that at the beginning of my practice, because it centers me instantly. And when my breath is calm, everything else opens and relaxes. I try and send the breath to areas where I'm feeling stuck or stiff. Top tips. Well, I would say little and often to begin with. I don't go near hot yoga. I don't do anything heated, because that for me is too strenuous. Hatha, Iyengar, Iyengar alignment, that was what I trained in. And just a real focus on your core, engaging your core, and focusing on the muscles as you're moving. So you're not just throwing your limb up in the air, because that's when you can do damage. And alignment, for safety. Bending the knees. I bend my knees anytime I'm coming up and down, or if I'm coming down into I'm doing a vinyasa, snaking through to cobra, my knees. I think that's really important. And so every day when I wake up, I have a couple of movements which I do every day. So eagle arms is one, because that releases between my shoulder blades. Yeah. Eagle arms.
Yeah.
Letting the head fold forwards, because that just gives me space between my shoulder blades, which for me is my challenging area. And it just gives such release. It's such a beautiful movement. And you can do it anywhere. Uttanasana, forward fold, simple forward fold, coming down over bent knees and just allowing myself to tip from my hips, weight evenly distributed in all 4 corners of your feet, and just hang. Bliss. I think that's a really powerful pose. And then eagle puppy pose. So you're coming down onto all 4s, but you're taking your palms, you're on your knees, you're taking your palms forwards. And I take again, to give me space around my shoulder blades, I take my arms slightly further apart, and then I allow my chest and my chin to sink forwards in between my palms, because that not only stretches out my lower back, but for me it stretches out between my shoulder blades. So I think that's also a really, really lovely pose. I'm very pro yin yoga, restorative yoga. I think it's really powerful, and actually it would probably be top of my list, because it's slow, There's a lot of myofascial release with yin yoga. It's gentle, and you're holding positions for longer, which allows the body to expand and really slip into whatever it is that you're doing. And I remember when I first started seeing all the show yogis and seeing all these dancers and amazing people with incredible bodies, and thinking, I want to do that. I want to do headstands. Naturally you want to be doing all these incredible vinyasa flows, but that wasn't possible. It wasn't achievable at the time. And even now I'm much stronger and I am the teacher. I still would choose a yin, because actually it gives better results. And quite often, if a flow is too fast for me, my body isn't getting enough time to slip into the position. Exactly, to adjust. And that's where I think it can cause damage, or you overpull something. But also, that's why I don't do the hot as well, because when my nervous system gets up, I tighten, I tense. It becomes stressful when my heart rate is too high, and then I don't let go. And it's that idea every day of repetition, neuroplasticity, of stretching those muscles in the mind, but also in the body. If you do something every day, again, your body, your mind forms a memory to keep bringing you back into that shape. Hence why I think sometimes slower is better. So and I would say, go with how you feel on the day, and find a teacher that, if you can, somebody that has experience with spinal alignment, an Iyengar center or somewhere more specialized, because quite often with big studios, you're there as part of a crowd of people, and teachers can't get around and adjust you if you're throwing your hips off. And I would say that for anyone just starting, a smaller group with a teacher who specializes is really important to start you off the right way. And then when you've got the adjustments right and you've worked out, you've oriented your own body, it's easier then to join a bigger class and work it out for yourself. So yeah, it's fantastic, and it's ongoing. And the same way you love it, I love it, because it's empowering, and it makes you feel good. That's ultimately what it's about. Feeling good, feeling well, so that we can do all the other things in life that we want to do.
Yes. So one final question from me. If you could travel back in time and you could meet your former self, and maybe before surgery or maybe just after surgery, do you have what would you say to Bel all those years ago?
Oh my gosh. Wow. It's been such a huge journey. What would I say? I think it would be confidence. I think it would be, whether you have surgery or not, whether you do yoga or not, it's that confidence to believe in yourself where you are right now, and that inner beauty, because I didn't feel that at the time, which is why I do a lot of ritual practice and meditation, and I use a lot of mantras, because that's really helpful for the mind. And I would just say, regardless of whether you have this ailment or not, women naturally, you compare yourself or you criticize yourself. Nobody is perfect. And I think for me, being told I had a deformity, that word in itself ricocheted at the time into other things. Well, I'm on the sports pitch and I'm not quite good enough. My work is not quite good enough. That word, deformity, it's a medical definition, but in my mind, it's not the right word to be giving someone, because ultimately no one's perfect anyway. And I love my curves. Everybody has something. Nobody gets it all, and it's what you make of it. So yeah, I would probably have lots of things to say to myself at 15, but that's been the biggest lesson, is, you know what, you can do all you want, but if you don't feel it inside, there's no difference. You know, you can wear the most beautiful gown and feel unattractive, and you can be in your trackies and feel amazing. So that's really important. I think one feeds into the other. You have to work with the mind and you have to work with the body. But yeah, it's changed my life completely. Holistic practice has totally changed my life. And I wouldn't be so energized and well and doing all the different things I want to do now without it. So yeah, and of course, since I've done my that's where we met, training with Elise Browning Miller, which was another layer again. And again, fantastic to be in an environment with other people who are in the body. And that's what it's about, isn't it? It's finding other people who are in the body, who've found ways to find ease and sharing.
Yes, absolutely. So where can people find you if they want to kind of connect with you or find out more?
Okay, so if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about today, mind, body, soul, whatever it is, I have an Instagram page. So I'm back-to-back.scoliosis, and back-to-back is just BACK and then 2TO back.scoliosis.
And I will link to it in the description as well. So
yeah, amazing. And then my website you can feed into from there, but it's backtobackyoga.com. And that has my full story. It has all of my x-rays on. For anyone considering surgery or just interested to see what I went through, you can see my x-rays and metalwork implanted. And you can share with me what you do, and I can share with you what I do. And it's a really beautiful space to for us all to learn, really. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone out there who's sitting alone or has questions or doesn't know which way to turn with surgery or the aesthetic side or scars or movement. And yeah, of course, you know, if anyone wants to be a part of any specific scoliosis classes or groups, keep an eye on the page.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Bel. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And
you, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.